Hello. Hey, how you doing? It's me, C, the one who loves the drama. Well, would you look at me actually back with a video after saying just a few days ago that I would be back with a video? I'm just as surprised as anyone else to see me here. So, yay me. Look at me doing things. Look at this improvement. Anyway, this is going to be my first mini drama recap and review. For some of you, you're going to be like, mini recap? What is that? And why are you doing that? And to that I say, I'm going to need you to go and check out the channel update that I posted about 3-4 days ago. It explains what's been happening and where the channel is going moving forward. And as of right now, only 4 people have seen it. So I get why you might be confused, but much like when I watch C-dramas and don't know what's going on because I hit the fast forward too often, all the answers are in the video. You just need to sit and watch it. So I'm gonna put it up here. Please go back and look at that one for me. Thanks for your girl. Okay, with all that said, let's get back to this mini drama recap. When I started thinking about what I wanted to do and how to introduce this series, I was going to talk about a few of the things that I really liked about these dramas first. But watching Kendrick Lamar win 5 Grammys for his song They Not Like Us, it made me realize that I do not spend enough time on the things that I hate. Sometimes hating on the right things in the right way leads to big wins. So we're going to start this out with the things about these dramas I hate. When I first started watching these, I was fairly confused. If you have seen any of them, you know that these mini dramas often include a significant amount of violence, specifically domestic violence, and specifically domestic violence aimed towards women. Now, plenty of these videos are presented in a very campy, over-the-top, non-serious way. And those are the ones that I tend to be able to watch and get some value. But if you've watched these consistently, you will also know that you see a lot of scenes that are not campy or over the top, that appear to be extremely real. And that really confused me. I know that these kinds of mini dramas that are meant to be watched on the phone are extraordinarily popular in Asia, and they're becoming more and more popular in the Western world. And I would gather just from the nature of the videos being made that a lot of them are aimed at women. So I was very confused about who those were being made for, and quite frankly, didn't finish a lot of those. Over time, there has been an elevation, and you start to see more strong female characters being presented, ones who maybe they are harmed, but they figure out how to stand up for themselves, and they get retribution and justice for what's been done to them. It doesn't always happen in these videos, but there are a lot more of those now than there were in the first couple of days when I saw these pop up. Having said that, you still will run into the occasional video where it's hard to watch. And one of the things I plan to do with these mini recaps is, because I see so many of them, I can warn you about the ones you probably don't want to watch. Still check those comments every time I can, and I have a tendency to wait until there are comments if I have any doubts about where that video is going to go. What we're covering today is one of those kinds of videos. I want to warn you up front that this review and recap is going to discuss quite a bit of violence. So if you are the least bit sensitive, I suggest you skip not only the actual video, but this review and recap altogether, and join me next week when I'm going to do something contemporary and much, much happier. So with all that glorious lead up, let's get into this recap and review, shall we? Yeah, let's just get into it. The story is about a prince and a princess from 2 different countries. When we meet them, they are children, and their countries have already been at war with each other for a prolonged period of time. We start out meeting the little prince in the middle of what's clearly been a battle. His country and the other country have recently fought, and his country lost. A massive enemy army is approaching, and the enemy's goal is to capture the little prince. There are very few survivors from the prince's army, but all of those remaining are committed to doing everything they have to do to protect him. The group includes the little prince's uncle, and we find out that the emperor has deliberately placed his son in danger because there is beef between the emperor and the prince's maternal family. We're told that the emperor is not a good guy, and that it is important that the little prince live so that he can someday replace his father as ruler. the little prince is dragged away by a single soldier while his uncle and the remaining companions give their lives to give him some time to find a safe place to hide. When we meet the little princess, it's clear immediately that she has had a very different upbringing than the little prince. She comes from a strong, loving, supportive family, including her parents, king and queen of the country, and her older brother, the crown prince. The little princess has clearly been spoiled a little by her loving family. She's bold and confident, but also, obviously, naughty. She's recently been grounded for failing to follow the rules, and feeling like that was entirely unfair to her, she has stolen a map from her brother's room and has used it to escape the palace and is currently in the woods not far from where the battle took place. The little princess stumbles across the injured little prince, and initially, when he finds out what country she's from, he intends to harm her. But she says that she is bullied by the people of her country and that they do not treat her well, so he sees her as a fellow companion. They are quickly found by the soldiers that were chasing him, and he takes an arrow in the back to protect the little princess. Once that happens, she feels compelled to save the little prince, so they run off together. When they get to a convenient place, she gives him the map that she stole from her brother and tells him to use it to find a safe way back to where he came from. She gives him a gold hairpin from her hair, and it's clear that both of them have been deeply affected by their meeting and fully intend to see each other someday in the future. 10 years pass. The now fully grown prince is the head of the army, and he has recently won a decisive victory over the princess's country. He still thinks of the little girl, now grown woman, on a regular basis. He is obsessed with finding her and fully intends to marry her once he does. But that did not stop him from destroying her country. He also did significant damage to the royal family. He enslaved the king and queen. The crown prince and his wife are missing. As for the princess, she has been captured by the prince and is brought back to the capital with him to suffer for all the things that his country went through during the war. Now, as the audience, we know right away that this princess is the same little girl that the prince is searching for, but he doesn't know that. And despite the fact that he talks to the princess about the little girl that was lost, and she has been thinking about the little boy and waiting for him ever since they lost each other as well, neither one of them recognizes that the person they're looking for is right in their face. A decree comes from his father, the emperor, saying that he must marry this princess. Unfortunately for the princess, the prince decides that just because they're getting married in some capacity does not mean that he is not free to torture her, and so he proceeds to do so. In these dramas, whether they are historical or contemporary, it is quite common that when you have a relationship between two people, there is a third party, usually a woman, who has grown up with the male lead and has always seen herself as his eventual wife and or partner. When the female lead gets introduced and takes over the role the third party wanted, she then proceeds to interfere with their relationship, cause miscommunication, and do whatever harm she can to the female lead. There's definitely one of those here, and she's a terrible one. Once the prince gets the princess in his household, what then occurs is some of the worst suffering that I have seen from any kind of video perpetrated upon another person. I'm going to tell you what these are so that you understand just how serious this is. Some of what she goes through includes, but is not limited to, having her tendons sliced so that she cannot hold anything with any real strength, which prevents her from harming other people, but more importantly, stops her from harming herself to end the suffering that she's going through. He repeatedly forces intimate contact on her against her will that leads to a pregnancy, only to force her to drink medication late in her pregnancy that ends the life of the baby. Her parents are eventually executed by the prince, and she is forced to watch. And then something follows that is so awful, I'm going to write down what happens, but I'm not going to say it out loud because I'm trying to be a positive person over here. The prince's cousin, the third party who always wanted to marry him, is often involved in getting the princess punished. The third party constantly sets up schemes and scenarios to harm the princess, and the prince, disliking the princess as much as he does, never investigates, but immediately rains down horror on the poor princess instead. When the third party realizes that the princess is actually the little girl that the prince has been looking for this entire time, she comes up with a clever idea that creates even more pain for the female lead. She gets another woman from that country, one of the princess's former maids, pretend to be the girl the prince was looking for. Once that woman comes into the household, they pretend like the female lead, the princess, has harmed his loved one, and that makes him go ham on her, including publicly branding her face in one of the worst scenes I've ever seen. Sometimes when you see this kind of thing going on in these dramas, they will blur out what's happening, but in this one, they do not spare you an inch. You see every level of pain and suffering she's going through, you see all the torturing, and you feel it. The third party also manages to poison the princess with something that is so bad that it is banned by their country, and even the prince thinks that it is over the top. It is a poison that causes pain with almost every movement and guarantees that the princess's life will end sooner rather than later. We find out fairly early that the prince has also managed to capture the princess's sister-in-law, who was pregnant with her brother's child. And he uses both that sister-in-law and the child to force the princess to comply. But when they finally get close to each other, she actually ends up stabbing the princess and revealing that the map that the little girl gave the little boy 10 years ago was a defense map for their country. And once the little boy realized what he had, he used it as an adult to defeat her country. The reason why the prince was able to have such a definitive defeat over the princess's country is because of the map she gave him. Both the sister-in-law and the princess consider all of the suffering of their country to be the princess's fault. This causes her to basically have a crash out, and she goes into a coma. It's also at this point when the prince realizes that she is the girl he was searching for the whole time, which causes him to go through his own suffering because he realizes just how much damage he has done to the only person on the planet he loves. When she comes back to consciousness, she has amnesia and does not remember anything that has happened. He tells her that they have found each other, that they're married, and that they are very happy together. He also goes on to threaten everyone in his palace that if they reveal to her what has actually happened, they will be harmed expediently. She is allowed to live in bliss for about 6 months, which is also devastating because you get to see what she would have been like had this war not impeded in her life. And she is light and fun and funny and playful, and they seem to be truly in love and like they would have been a good team. Unfortunately, you still have that third party girl who is even more upset now because the prince has found his princess. He is now truly married to her in his heart and deeply in love, leaving absolutely no chance for the third party girl to marry the prince. She works very hard to expose the lie to the princess, and when she fails to do that, ends up hooking up with the emperor, who hates the prince because the prince is far more popular and almost more powerful than the emperor is himself. Now the emperor's concubine, the third party girl, suggests that they hurt the prince by hurting the princess. They get a hold of her, and in an absolutely heartbreaking scene, they reveal the truth about what has happened and basically make her realize that she has been living happily with the men who killed her parents. She recovers her memory right before the crown prince shows up and puts on a full rebellion against his father, becoming the emperor himself. Of course, now that she knows what's happened, the princess, now empress, does not want to be in a relationship with him and is aware of the poison in her system and that she doesn't have much time left. The love the emperor has for her turns even more obsessive, puts her through a wedding ceremony even though she is once again unconscious. While he is waiting for her to come back to consciousness, you find out that yet another person from her royal family has survived, her brother. He has gotten together all of the soldiers he could find from his country and is demanding to see the prince in battle again. He also knows that the prince has his sister and wife, and he wants them back. While she's still unconscious, the emperor goes to confront her brother, telling him unceremoniously that the brother's wife is no longer with the living and that he will not be giving up the brother's sister. That they are married, she is the empress, and she's not going anywhere. While they are arguing with each other, the empress comes back to consciousness. She comes to see the confrontation and essentially makes both sides promise that they will stop fighting each other, and takes her own life. The devastation of losing the only person that both the brother and the emperor have in this world to love does cause them to stop fighting, and the two countries go through a prolonged period of peace and prosperity. At the very end, you see that the emperor basically has suffered the rest of his life for the damage that he did to the princess. It does not appear that he remarried, he did not have children, and the show ends with him passing the country on to a relative of his that he believes will rule in a peaceful, kind way, while he stares at a painting of the woman he loved and lost. So yeah, this one was a doozy. There was a lot of commentary that I included in the written part of this video this time, because this video has already gotten way longer than I wanted it to be. So please, if you did not pay attention to what I was saying there, go back and take a look at it. I will be back in the next few days with one of these that I actually like, and potentially a warning about some other ones, because, weirdness always gets in the mix. Anyway, good luck with whatever it is you got going on. Thanks for watching, especially if you got to this part, and I will see you the next time.